So the most important thing to pay attention to with the pandemic is the population prevalence. So this is how many cases do we have, and are cases going up or are cases coming down? I think when cases start to come down, once they reach a certain level, we can feel much more comfortable. One way to ensure that cases start to come down is to do lockdowns. So to make sure that people don't interact with other people and continue to spread the disease. However, once we get some control, if we are able to do indoor mask use, mandated indoor mask use, and vaccination, that gives us some freedom to be around other people without having to worry that we're continuing to spread the virus. For the general population, we can take boosters based on data that come from the general population. So on average, it seems like at about 6 months, our antibody levels drop to the point where we need a booster. So if you look like the general population, it is reasonable to do this at 6 months. However, for specific populations, for example, for people who are immunocompromised, for people who have higher risk with their work, for people who might have a higher risk that their antibody levels would drop faster, for those people, it is very reasonable to check their antibodies and give them a booster when the antibody levels fall below a certain level. So there are two reasons why we might need boosters. One of them is the reason we have now, which is there is a lot of virus everywhere. And since we're still in the middle of a very active pandemic, we need antibodies. That is the key component of the immune system that is helping us right now. That's the early immune response. So as long as we have a lot of virus out there, we will continue to need antibodies. And we know that antibodies drop after getting a vaccine. So we will continue to need boosters to bring up our antibody levels. Now, once the caseload drops and we are out of this pandemic and it reaches an endemic form, we may be able to rely on other components of our immune system, the later immune response from T cells and memory B cells. That is much more durable. That lasts much longer after vaccination. If we're not in a very active pandemic, we will not need to keep our antibody levels up and to have such frequent boosters. The other reason we might need a booster is if there are new variants that don't respond to the current vaccines that we have, just like we always need a flu shot because there are new variants of flu that we need to be protected from. If that happens, we will need a booster for those new variants. So for people with compromised immune systems, there are two goals. One is to help them reach the level of immunity with initial vaccination that everybody in the general population reaches with, for example, 2 doses of the mRNA vaccine. Immunocompromised people might need 3 doses, or they might even need to change their medication to help them respond to the doses of the vaccine. We are currently doing some NIH-funded trials to better understand how to reach initial immune levels in immunocompromised patients. For example, we study patients who have had organ transplants. Now, the other option for immunocompromised people who cannot respond to the vaccine, and there will be millions of them, they need to seek other levels of protection. One way to do this is through monoclonal antibodies, and there are emerging strong data that getting monoclonal antibodies pre-exposure can protect people who cannot mount a vaccine response. And the other way to do it is to reduce the virus prevalence in the entire community, which means all of us with competent immune systems have to get vaccinated, boosted. We have to use masks when masks are appropriate, etc. Obviously, having a new oral drug as treatment is very encouraging because it means that people who get COVID are likely to have a less severe infection. However, this is only treatment. And remember that if somebody gets COVID, by the time they have symptoms, they've already spread the disease to many people for days, if not maybe even one full week. So I think that new treatments are exciting because they will reduce the morbidity and mortality associated with the pandemic, but they don't reduce the spread, and we still need to focus on vaccines to reduce the spread. One mistake people are making is to think, well, I don't need the vaccine because if I get exposed, then I can just take post-exposure prophylaxis. The problem is, one, you don't know when you got exposed. Of course, there are some instances where you do know you got exposed, but there are many instances where you could be getting exposed and you don't know that you got exposed. So that's problematic. And two, if you're not protected, when you are exposed, you are shedding virus and you are potentially spreading that virus to other people. So it is still absolutely the most important thing is to have everyone get vaccinated. And until everybody is vaccinated and until the numbers drop substantially, to make sure that when people are indoors around strangers, that they're wearing masks and that they're practicing the behaviors that we know reduce the spread of this virus.